I was wondering, I mean, one of the big issues, I guess, around the transition to digital from traditional print in journalism seems to be the economics of it all. You know, the old expression, digital dimes versus print dollars, advertising revenues. I mean, everyone can see that, you know, there's obviously a website and online platforms are the future, and that at some point down the road, and who knows when, but it probably will be within a reasonably short period of time, you know, the old printed newspaper will probably, you know, really fade into the past. But and meanwhile, the advertising revenue doesn't seem to be quite aligning. At least that seems to be, that's my understanding. Is that?
That's right. It's really difficult. I think that newspapers around the country have really struggled with this issue, and it boils down to this. Google and Facebook own 90% of the media market online. And you're right, it's digital dimes. They have set the advertising rate for everyone. And so our challenge, as is the challenge for everyone who's in digital media, is to help readers and advertisers understand that if they want local news to survive, they have to support it at a higher level. And so we charge a good deal more than Google and Facebook do for underwriting on our site. And that's because we have a niche audience that consists of about 130,000 unique readers a month, and many of whom are really involved in state politics and in businesses around the state. It's kind of a unique VIP audience, and it's broadened over time, but we've always had this base audience of people who really care about what's happening at the State House and what's happening with the business community in Vermont. And so we feel we're in a unique position to sell underwriting at a higher level because of that. But it really is a challenge, and that's one of the reasons why we went with the nonprofit model, because there are no profits in journalism now. And it's, so why not, right?
Yeah, about the obvious.
And to me, one of the things that I don't like that is done now is they show the victim after the crime has happened. You know, they show a body, or, and to me that isn't the point. To me, you need to humanize that person. Rather, once you see a corpse, that's how you're going to think of that person. So I wanted my film to go the opposite direction. I wanted people to be able to identify with Sarah Hunter as a human being, to connect the way I looked at it. Like, if she was my sister, this is how I would feel about this. So he was able to, he actually came to Vermont for the first time in decades and filmed a lengthy interview with me, provided me with what is most likely, or possibly, you know, the only video footage of Sarah Hunter. And he was able to paint that picture of her as you know, who she was as his friend. You know, they worked together every day. They, you know, she and her boyfriend and other couple, they hung out together as couples with he and his wife, and you know, and you know, they were definitely friends. And so he was able to provide that picture of who she was as a person. So now when you watch, you really, and then you see moving video of her, you hear her voice, you hear her laughing. I mean, it's really, there's no way you cannot identify and connect.
Now, will you be going down to the courthouse in Bennington when that trial begins to either record more or do more, or? I
would very much like to film the verdict. I'm not sure how long the trial is going to be, and you know, I don't know that I would want to film the whole trial, but I certainly would like to get, you know, particularly if there's a guilty verdict, I would love to have that on film. I did go down to the courthouse when they arraigned him, and I did film his arraignment, and I have edited that in. But, you know, like I say, you know, this gentleman took the film to a whole other level for me, and so I ended up doing a complete second edit of the film. And now that, you know, the suspect is here, and going on trial, you know, if I do get that extra footage, I mean, there will be a third, and that will definitely be the final edit. At some point this year, I will have that film really completed, and I think it'll be a much better film than it was even when, and I felt it was powerful in the initial version, you know, but this is really going to take it to another level.
One of the things I remember when I saw it, the first version a couple of years ago, was the interviews you did with the folks, many of whom are still around here, and kind of the human emotional reaction that they had. But I was wondering, do you explore at all the DNA evidence and the forensic piece that went into actually cracking the case? And in some ways, when they announced who the suspect was, or the prime suspect was, and how they were able to link a couple of pieces of hairs, I think, that were found in a car using more modern DNA techniques than were available in 1986 or in the years immediately following that. I mean, that was like just fascinating to be able to put that together. Just wondered, did you think what the governor outlined in his budget address made sense, moved us in the right direction, or?
Well, from my perspective, I'm a long-term supporter of tax reform, and the Blue Ribbon Tax Structure Commission from several years ago made a number of recommendations as how we should improve the efficiency and equity of our income tax system, and we have not done those. So just dealing with one of the deductions, which is the state and local federal tax, or layering a new tax on top of an inefficient, inequitable tax system that we already have, I'm not going there at all. And one of the things that I think is really tragic is that in the focus on the equity of how we do or do not finance health insurance, we've missed the fact that the entire state government is not financed equitably. But the genius of what the Blue Ribbon Tax Reform Commission suggested is they said, yes, we have to close these special provisions, deductions, credits, exemptions, but we will take the money and use it to lower rates. So for the governor to say, I'm going to take away this special provision, it's just a flat out tax increase. I'm not doing that. You got to give people something. You got to give them lower rates. And that was the genius of the tax reform suggestions of the Blue Ribbon Commission. And the governor has refused to consider it. Former Rep. Jeff Wilson tried to push some of those things. The governor refused to do it. And I think it was a great missed opportunity. So I want to go on with that. I'm not doing any new taxes of any kind until we reform the system we have. But unfortunately, many of the powerful people in Montpelier don't agree with me, or at least they don't agree with me enough to actually do something.